On today's episode of Budget Deck Tech, we're looking at the Jace Ingenious Mind-Mage Planeswalker deck. I'm going to take this deck and then $10 and see what I can do to improve the deck. The rules are pretty simple. I can only add cards from the Ixalan block, and at the end of the day, it's got to be a standard legal deck. This is what the deck will look like out of the box. It is a blue-green Merfolk deck, and I do have a few issues with it. So firstly is the lands. You get way too many lands in this deck. You get 26, and most of your creatures are 2-drops, so that's way more than you're going to need. Secondly is the counterspell issue. You're playing blue here, but you don't have a single counterspell in this deck. And then my last issue is just with the creatures. They're not the best ones out there, so we're going to try to improve those when we rebuild this deck. So let's go ahead and give ourselves $10 and start building the deck. We're leaving all 4 copies of Woodland Stream in the deck, and then we're going to have 10 islands and 8 forests. So that gives us a total of 22 lands in the deck. We're going to be leaving Jace in the deck. Once you have him in play, you'll be able to draw additional cards every turn. And then we're going to leave both copies of Grasping Current in the deck. This is a great way to get Jace into your hand if you don't have him there. One of the advantages of playing Merfolk is their speed. Our goal is to get an army out there by turn 5 or 6. We're going to start with Mist-Cloaked Herald. This is a perfect turn 1 play. It's a 1/1 for 1 mana, and it can't be blocked. This card goes for 15 cents a piece, and we're going to be adding 4 of them to our deck. Next up, we've got River Sneak. This is another 1/1 unblockable creature. The only difference is when you cast another Merfolk, she gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So this card goes for 25 cents a piece. We'll add 4 of these to the deck as well. The perfect enchantment to use on those unblockable creatures is Curious Obsession. Not only will it give your creature +1/+1, but whenever that creature deals damage to your opponent, you get to draw a card. So if you can get to the point where you're drawing a few additional cards per turn, you're set. We're going to add 4 of these cards to the deck at 25 cents a piece. We're going to need something to block with, so why not do it with tokens? Deeproot Waters is an enchantment, and whenever you cast another Merfolk spell, you get to create a 1/1 blue Merfolk token. So we're going to use this card to create ourselves an army of blockers. We're adding 4 of this card to the deck, which is going to cost us $1. Next up, we've got Vineshaper Mystic. She is a 1/3 for 3 mana, and when she enters the battlefield, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on up to 2 of your target Merfolk. So when you cast her, you definitely want to put those counters on your unblockable creatures so they do a little more damage there. The deck currently comes with 2 of these cards. We're adding 2 more to create a full playset at 25 cents a piece. Next up is one of our biggest creatures in the deck. Jadecraft Artisan is a 3/3, and when he enters the field, you get to put a +2/+2 counter on one of your other creatures until end of turn. And again, you're going to want to put this counter on your unblockable creature to just chip away at your opponent's life total. We're adding a full playset of these to the deck at 15 cents a piece. I would love to add a full playset of Merfolk Mistbinder to the deck, but I just can't afford that. This card gives all other Merfolk you control +1/+1. The card goes for $2 right now, so we're going to add 1 to the deck. Emergent Growth is going to be a great way to deal a huge chunk of damage to your opponent. Just go ahead and cast it on one of your unblockable creatures, and boom, an extra 5 damage there. So these cards go for 25 cents a piece. We'll add a full playset of them to the deck. Next up, we're adding 2 copies of Silence in Twain to the deck. Not only will this allow us to destroy an artifact or enchantment, it also lets us draw a card. So this is going to cost us 50 cents. Next up, we're adding 3 copies of Cancel. I would honestly save these for if your opponent casts a giant creature or something big with flying, since we don't have any flying in this deck. But these are pretty cheap cards, 15 cents a piece, and we're adding 3 of them. And last but not least, we've got River's Rebuke. This is another card that I just can't afford to put any more of in the deck, but I wish I could. It costs 6 mana, and it's a nice way of clearing your opponent's board. So this card goes for $1, we're adding 1 to the deck. And that is that. We're at 60 cards now, we spent almost all of our $10. So hopefully the deck is a little bit faster now. You got a lot of little small creatures doing little bits of damage, a lot of them unblockable. Hopefully you get to the point where you're drawing a bunch of cards per turn and you can overwhelm your opponent with the amount of creatures you have on the board there. I've now done budget deck techs for all 4 of the Ixalan Planeswalker decks, and I can say that this was by far the hardest one to create. A budget Merfolk deck is very hard to do just because all of the really good cards are pretty pricey. There are so many cards that I wanted to add to this deck, but I just couldn't. But hopefully it is a little bit better than how it started, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.